Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 1 Timothy, the 5th chapter. Rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father, and the young men as brethren. Now, Paul's not saying here that, if somebody does wrong, not to correct them or reprove them, but in the way you you have to, tailor it to still be respectful. So rebuking not an elder meaning no, don't speak harshly to them, but there's a way in which you can go about it to bring it to their attention or to address a certain matter. So in the NLT, it says, never speak harshly to an older man, but appeal to him respectfully as you would to your own father. If your father did something wrong, you wouldn't just up and yell at him, right? Talk to younger men as you would to your own brothers. So Paul is showing Timothy the ways, because when you do this, you're respected. Okay, you're you're honorable. You're not leaving any room for reproach. Nobody can say really anything evil against you. The elder women as mothers, the younger as sisters. So esteem them, as mothers, as you would your mother, or the younger women as you would your sisters, with all purity. Honor widows that are widows indeed, right? Meaning widows that actually have nobody. But if any widow have children or nephews, let them first learn to shew piety at home, and to requite their parents, for this is good and acceptable before God. It says, but if she has children or grandchildren, their first responsibility is to show godliness at home and repay their parents. Repay their parents by taking care of them. This is something that pleases God. See, because in order to, because I think he's going to mention it about the enrollment, okay, of like a widow in the church, you had to meet certain requirements. Verse 5, now she that is a widow indeed and desolate trusteth in God, and continueth in supplication and prayers night and day. Right. So a true widow, who's, she doesn't have anybody, she places her hope in the Lord, right? She makes her supplication to the Lord, day and night. That's all she can really do. But she that liveth in pleasures is dead while she liveth. See, so on the other hand, you have those that only live for, pleasure, quote unquote widows, not really true widows, and not sincerely serving the Lord. They just care about pleasing the flesh. They're already dead. They're spiritually dead, and they're already condemned, because they're not willing to discipline themselves or dedicate themselves to the Lord. And these things give in charge that they may be blameless. Okay, so give these instructions to the church so they know, all right, they understand. NLT, give these instructions to the church so that no one will be open to criticism. Because now you already know what you should and shouldn't be doing. You know what the requirements are. But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. Okay, I read this in the NLT as well on my phone. It says, but those who won't care for their relatives, right, provide not for their own, especially those in their own household, have denied the true faith. Such people are worse than unbelievers, because if you don't have it within you to take care of your own family, your own relatives, how are you going to take care of those in the Lord? You can't even care for your relatives, as the Lord is saying. Once again, it speaks more about you and your nature and your character. Let not a widow be taken into the number under 60 years old, 60, having been the wife of one man. Taken into the number is, as it says here in the NLT, a widow who is put on the list for support must be a woman who is at least 60 years old and was faithful to her husband, well reported of for good works, so she has a good reputation, if she have brought up children, right? Examples of these being if she has brought up children, she's nurtured, she's raised up children. If she have lodged strangers, right? She uh, um opened up her home to strangers, or took care of them. If she have washed the saints' feet, if she have relieved the afflicted, if she have diligently followed every good work. These are all examples of good works to look for. But the younger widows refuse, for when they have begun to wax wanton against a Mashiach, they will marry. See, so for the younger women, do not put them on the list because they're still young. So when you go into that wax wanton, when their physical hormones start craving it, to feel the impulse of sexual desire, once they start feeling that heat, what's going to happen is they're not going to stay a widow. They're going to go and marry because they still have that desire in that youth. So don't put them on there. To avoid, right, verse 12, having damnation because they have cast off their first faith. Let's go into this. And the first faith here is referring to the duty or responsibility, right? NLT says, then they would be guilty of breaking their previous pledge to be a dedicated widow in the church. So to avoid that, if they're young, don't put them in the record, as a widow of the church. Verse 13, and withal they learn to be idle, wandering about from house to house, and not only idle, but tattlers also, and busybodies, speaking things which they ought not. See, because they're young. So once again, you put them in this position, this is eventually what it's going to lead to. And if they're on the list, they will learn to be lazy and will spend their time because they're taken care of. They don't got to do anything. They don't got to worry about, taking care of things. And will spend their time gossiping from house to house, meddling in other people's business, and talking about things they shouldn't. See? And that's not what is becoming of a widow of the church. So Paul says, I will therefore that the younger women marry. So instead, to avoid all this, if they're young, let them marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. So let them be shamefaced, let them stay at home, let them, have children, take care of the house. Don't give any occasion for somebody to be able to speak evil. For some are already turned aside after Satan. So unfortunately, some of them, NLT says, for I am afraid that some of them have already gone astray and now follow Satan. What that means is they've given into their desires. Okay, they're following Satan. It's not like they became Satanists, is that they gave into the temptation, of the desires of the flesh. If any man or woman that believeth have widows, let them relieve them, and let not the church be charged, that it may relieve them that are widows indeed. So if you have a relative or somebody that is a widow, take care of them. Okay, don't come and put them on the church, and then the church got to. Meanwhile, you're here, or they got people that can chime in to help them. The church should be focused on helping widows that are actually widows without anybody to help them. Now, concerning elders, verse 17, let the elders that rule well be counted worthy of double honor, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine. Now, the word double honor here, honor is dealing here, it's more than just like respect, but also monetarily. Okay? So the word honor says a valuing by which the price is fixed of the price itself. So double that, right? Of the price paid or received for a person or thing bought or sold, honor which belongs or is shown to one, right? Then you go into reverence and rank and so on. But this is the same word used in, let's see, where is it? Look at that. When you look at the use of it here, right? Price, honor, prices, price. So it's also dealing with, an amount, okay, that you would give them to take care of them. That's a part of the honor, but they will get double. Especially they who labor in the word and doctrine. as it's going to say here, because they really should be taken care of by the church. Verse 18, for the scripture saith, thou shalt not muzzle the ox that treadeth out the corn. The ox treading out the corn on the threshing floor, you would have the oxen sometimes walk and tread with their hooves on the threshing floor to basically get the husk right off of the actual grain. And in the law, the scriptures say that you're not supposed to muzzle or shut the mouth of the ox, because as they're working and treading, they have the right to be able to eat, every so often eat of the grain that's on the ground. And the laborer is worthy of his reward. So the elders in here will be likened onto the ox, which have, as remember Paul said, they labor in the word and doctrine, and they're worthy of their hire to be taken care of the church. Against an elder receive not an accusation, but before 2 or 3 witnesses. So don't just take somebody's word against it. If somebody tries to bring an accusation against an elder to you, as he's telling Timothy here, don't just take their word for it. Do not listen, NLT, to an accusation against an elder unless it is confirmed by 2 or 3 witnesses. Them that sin rebuke before all, that others also may fear. But here in the top it said rebuke not an elder. So now you see why here in the beginning when it says rebuke not an elder, it's not it doesn't mean that they, if they do something wrong, it can't be addressed. What it means is how you go about doing it. Right. But here in verse 20, the Apostle Paul is telling him, look, certain matters have to be addressed, openly before the church, so people can see if people need to be made an example out of. They have to, so that the rest can fear and stay in order. Keep the order in the church. I charge thee before God and the Lord Yahushua HaMashiach and the elect angels that thou observe these things without preferring one before another. Don't be partial, doing nothing by partiality. See? I solemnly command you in the presence of God and Yahushua, or Hamashiach Yahushua, and the highest angels to obey these instructions without taking sides or showing favoritism to anyone. See? Lay hands suddenly on no man. This isn't talking about like to beat somebody up, right? You think of laying hands on somebody, you think of like like harming them. Laying hands here refers to actually the opposite. Like, don't be quick to accept, as NLT says, never be in a hurry about appointing a church leader. Neither be partaker of other men's sins. Keep thyself pure, right? And do not share in the sins of others. Keep yourself pure. So don't even tolerate it. Okay, don't get involved in it. Handle it. Shut it down immediately. Drink no longer water, but use a little wine for thy stomach's sake and thine often infirmities. So it seems here that Timothy was prone to certain sicknesses, right? Often gets sick, as Paul is saying here, and he's saying, you gotta drink some wine for that, every so often. Yeah, NLT, don't drink only water. You ought to drink a little wine for the sake of your stomach, because you are sick too often. Verse 24, some men's sins are open beforehand, going before to judgment, and some men they follow after. All right, and here what he's saying is there are some people whose sins are, immediate. You can see it right away. Boom, call it out. And some it's revealed later. Likewise, also the good works of some are manifest beforehand, and they that are the otherwise cannot be hid. So likewise, you have some whose works immediately you see, and some eventually comes to light. NLT, in the same way, the good deeds of some people are obvious, and the good deeds done in secret will someday come to light. And that brings us to the end of the book of 1 Timothy, the 5th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham, Bracha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.